Hey, good morning. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the misconception that is Leica are only for the rich. I'm also going to cover the fact that potentially, in my eyes, Fuji cameras, Fuji X, seem to be slightly overpriced when you can see what you can buy if you buy smart. So stay tuned. This is not bashing Fuji and pro Leica. I'm just trying to share what I know about both systems, and hopefully it will benefit some of you, especially those people that don't know the loopholes when it comes to buying Leica cameras at an affordable price. Let's jump into the video. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. Slightly different background today. I thought I'd try and give you something different. So this video was actually spotted by an email I received this morning. I'm going to share it on my screen, but it's words to the effect of, "Hey Matt, thanks for helping educate us in terms of Leica can be affordable and for normal people." I definitely wasn't born into Leica, yet I still shoot with Leica cameras, multiple Leica cameras in fact. There are shortcuts to allow you to enjoy Leica cameras and not spend a ton of money. Actually, the timing of this email is absolutely perfect because I'm just learning a bit more about Fuji X cameras. If you saw my last video, I'm currently playing with a Fuji X-T2 and I should be getting a Fuji X-Pro3 coming very soon, so look out for a video on that. And certain things are surprising me, and it makes me think, why are people buying the Fuji cameras instead of maybe other cameras? And there's lots of good reasons, I'm sure, and we'll cover those. But the main point is, I don't think people understand fully that some Leica systems can be affordable, potentially cheaper than your existing Fuji setup or the Fuji setup you're looking to purchase. Let me give you some examples. Now, no matter if you love Fuji or Leica, or enjoy both, you probably know that Leica digital cameras tend to be quite expensive, especially digital M-mount cameras. Now, please don't hate me for saying this, and it sounds very cringe, but I'll say it anyway. I always kind of thought that people that bought Fuji were buying so because they didn't want to spend the money or couldn't spend the money on a Leica camera. I thought Fuji were a small compact setup similar to a Leica M, as you see here, but at a cheaper price point. Obviously Fuji have got lots more benefits, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if we just first look at the price, I put out various Fuji polls and things before my latest Fuji video. I'm in the process of making some of my Mr. Leica look presets for Fuji, so I'm spending some time with this system, and I was trying to learn a bit more about the Fuji X series cameras. One thing that really surprised me is the price of some of the used Fuji X series cameras, and especially things like the Fuji X-Pro3. This is where, for me, it gets a bit confusing. Let's break it down and I'll give you some scenarios. So if you want to buy a Fuji X-Pro3, they seem to be roughly £1,500 used in places like MPB. And then let's say you want to buy a Fuji X series branded lens. I searched some and they seem to be about £1,000. I'm sure you can get them cheaper, and I can see you can pay more than this as well. So for argument's sake, you bought yourself a Fuji X-Pro3 plus Fuji X-Pro lens or Fujifilm lens, total price £2,500. Now, if Fuji users are happy to spend this much money on their system, that's going to be our lump of money that we can spend on any camera system. Now, I'm not going to cover all camera systems today, but I am going to cover Leica because that's my area of expertise. I teach people how to use Leica cameras, and I guess I'm a Leica educator with the MrLeica.com blog and 450 Leica related videos. What can you get for Leica for £2,500? Now, this is going to surprise you if you don't know much about Leica. If you do know about Leica already, comment below your thoughts on why you'd still choose Fuji over the Leica systems I'm about to suggest. I've made a list. Okay, so for £2,500, you can have, in no particular order, let's first go with Leica M240, this one, or any of the previous models. That could be Leica M9 or Leica M8, or any similar models, Leica M262, things like that. You can have a full frame digital Leica camera, the same size as your Fuji X-Pro3, but it's got a proper built-in rangefinder and will give you EVF view if you want an EVF view. Just use a little electronic viewfinder on the hot shoe. And the option of obviously amazing lenses because it's like an M mount, so you can use all the legacy lenses. I'm going to come to that in just a second. Let's just assume that X-Pro3 users buy the X-Pro3 for the rangefinder experience, the size, and the ability to use, say, Voigtlander lenses via an adapter. I'm not sure if this is true, just speculating. If you want all those features and you're not fussed about the film simulations, let's say you shoot RAW and add a preset in Lightroom, and that's how you edit, that's how I edit, then there's a strong argument to get a full frame sensor instead of APS-C and get a proper rangefinder instead of a, what should we call it, almost rangefinder camera versus a real rangefinder camera. Now, as mentioned, the Fuji setup is going to cost us £2,500, so we need to get a lens as well as the camera for the same price if we buy Leica. Leica M240 around £2,000, so that means we've still got £500 to spend on a lens. And I know you're going to say, like, Matt, Leica lenses cost like £5,000 or £3,000. We can't afford a lens for our new nice camera, therefore we'll buy Fuji. And this is where I think people go wrong. There are so many great legacy lenses and actually new lenses now for Leica, the Leica M mount, that you don't necessarily need to buy a Leica branded lens as your first lens. Now, I just bought this lens in B&H when I was in the States teaching 2 weeks ago. This Summicron 50 f2 lens cost me $200. Leica can be affordable, you just need to know where to look. This one, for transparency, this one has got scratches, but I'll try and show you in a future video that you can clean up Leica lenses or any lens, or even lenses with scratches, fix them up and then make them into a working lens. Now, you're not normally going to find Leica lenses for $200. I would say one of the best lenses available for Leica as a legacy lens is things like the Canon 50mm f1.8 super compact, Canon 51.4 if you want something slightly more arty, or something like a 7 Artisans 51.1. If you're a portrait guy like me, I've got my portrait book and how to do photo shoots and work with models coming soon, so look out for that. Quick plug. If you shoot portraits, in my mind, you just cannot get the same results from an APS-C camera as you can a full frame camera if you're using full frame lenses. So as you know, I'm not anti-APS-C. I've got my own Leica CL camera, but when using full frame, you get all the juicy goodness around the edge of full frame lenses. This means if you buy some classic 1950s lens, put it on your Fuji, you're not going to get the same benefits as fitting it to any full frame camera, because you lose all that nice bit at the edge and you just get a clean, sharp photo in the center. If you shoot portraits like me, we don't want a clean, sharp photo in the center. We want the central portion to be sharp, which focuses your attention on the subject, your model, whatever you're photographing, and then the rest falls off to give that really pleasing look. You can't get that as easily with APS-C. I know, because I shoot APS-C as well as full frame. So that's one of the biggest benefits. If you shoot portraits and you're currently on Fuji and you're not that happy with your results, if you like the idea of playing with legacy lenses, I mean like old lenses from eBay, you're definitely better to get full frame, even if you go with Sony or Lumix or anyone else. We'll talk about Lumix in a second. Now, if you buy Fuji X series cameras because you like autofocus and slightly lighter than an M camera, then you want to maybe potentially look at a Leica Q camera. You can also get Leica Q series cameras for around £2,000 used, with the benefit that this comes with a fixed Leica lens and no ordinary Leica lens. This is a Summilux 28mm f1.7. This means it works in low light, it's fast, it's snappy, it gives you macro, it just does everything. And if you're a JPEG shooter, you can then use the benefit of the Q camera where you can crop in from 28 to 35mm to 50mm, for example. So it's like 3 lenses in one. For me, that's the best autofocus one camera, one lens setup. I'm sure there are Fuji users which have switched from the X100 point and shoot cameras to Leica Q cameras. Comment below if you've gone from Fuji X to the Leica Q. I know some of you that have written to me have definitely done this. The Leica Q is well within our £2,500 budget, and you'll even have around £500 to spend on a trip to take some nice pictures. And finally, the third camera that's within budget, which you could look at, but I probably wouldn't recommend, is the Leica CL. The Leica CL with lenses can also be found for less money than the £2,500 we're talking about for the Fuji X-Pro3 plus a £1,000 Fuji lens. The reason I'd suggest maybe not getting the Leica CL is if you're already fully invested in the Fuji kit, there's not really much point going from APS-C to APS-C. You may as well just stay with the camera system that you love, and if you do later want to upgrade to full frame, not APS-C. That said, some people have written to me and they have gone from Fuji to the Leica CL, and they all seem very happy with it. But just to point out, personally, I'd probably go from Fuji X to full frame if I was going to make the jump. Now, for completeness, let's just say you don't have £2,500 to spend on your Fuji system, you only have £1,000. If you've only got £1,000 for camera and lens, I would still recommend going for a different camera so you can have full frame. I would get a Lumix S5, and then you can attach the same mentioned lenses that I've already mentioned. The reason I would recommend the Lumix S5 is because it's pretty cheap. If you buy them used, I just looked on eBay just there, an MPB, around £700 for a used Lumix S5. And then because they seem to have some collaboration with Leica, the sensor stack of the Lumix S5 is not too thick in that you can use your Leica lenses on your Lumix. I use the Lumix S5 alongside my SL, and I can get pretty much the same photos from both cameras if I use Leica lenses on both. Benefits to the Lumix S5 is like the Leica SL and the CL, both of these can be used with L mount lenses if you later want to use autofocus. Okay, so with all that said, why would you still get Fuji rather than Leica? I know some people probably hate Leica and love Fuji, and that's totally cool. I'm just trying to explain it from my point of view, and my knowledge is all on the Leica system. As I say, I teach people about Leica. So why would you buy Fuji or stay with Fuji instead of Leica? I tried to do some digging to fully understand the concept, and I think reasons to buy Fuji X and stay with Fuji is number one, probably the most obvious one. If you're already invested heavily in a particular system, it makes sense to stay with that system. If you've already got a really nice Fuji X system set up with like lots of premium lenses, there's no point buying a Leica because you can't use your favorite lenses on your Leica camera. Point number two, if you like the Fuji X system because of the APS-C crop, because it gives you more reach, that will be another reason to keep the Fuji X system. So let's say you shoot wildlife. If you've got a 200mm lens on a Leica, it's not very often, but if you adapted a 200mm lens to a full frame camera, it's obviously 200mm. If you put a 200mm lens on a Fuji X camera, it's 300mm or slightly longer because of the crop factor. Reason number three to stay with Fuji or buy Fuji. If you like a small compact camera that's relatively light compared to Leica cameras, I think Fuji are probably the smallest with autofocus combination that you can get, potentially. I know a few other brands also do APS-C setups, and my Leica CL with a TL lens is also pretty small. It might actually be slightly smaller than the Fuji, but on the whole, Fuji are seen, I think, to be smaller than full frame setups. And finally, the biggest reason to buy Fuji, potentially from what you guys are saying, is the film simulations. Now, I assume that most people are therefore shooting in JPEG to use the in-camera film simulation look, because obviously if you're shooting RAW, you're not going to get the effect of the in-camera film simulations, and you have to process them via Lightroom or Capture One, for example. I'm a RAW shooter, so the film simulation look doesn't really appeal to me because I'm going to edit the RAW files via Lightroom with my Mr. Leica presets anyway. I never use JPEGs. Now, if you just love to shoot a photo, take a quick picture, upload it to social media, JPEGs are obviously great. And I think Fuji X cameras have that very Fuji look. It's very easy to recognize Fuji colors if you're scrolling through some images in social media. And so I think if you really love that color palette, the reason you'd buy Fuji or stay with Fuji is for the Fuji film simulations. If any of you used to shoot film, as you probably know, if you're a regular viewer, you know I love film and I prefer film to my digital cameras. That might be one benefit where people feel like they're shooting film, but they don't have to faff with all the developing. So in summary, that's my 2p's worth on Fuji X versus Leica cameras. I wanted to put a video out, or a more recent video out, just to explain that you can buy Leica cameras for much less money than most people seem to realise. And yeah, it just blew my mind that if people are spending that much money on a crop sensor Fuji, if they ever look through a Leica camera, I would be 90% sure they would then switch to Leica, especially if you shoot full frame and looking through a Leica SL camera. I don't think you could ever go back to a small viewfinder. The experience is just night and day difference. You could sell your X-Pro3 and just buy a full frame, use Leica SL. But if you've already got M lenses that you're playing around with on your Fuji system, you'll get such better pictures once you put your same lenses onto a full frame sensor. I hope you enjoyed the video. Fuji users, please don't hate me. I'm not bashing Fuji. I'm trying to make this video for people that have maybe never had the opportunity to look through a Leica camera before and are happy to spend the money that we're talking about in today's video, around £2,500. If you've only got a budget of £500 or £1,000, I'm guessing there are some cheaper Fuji cameras available. But once you start paying over £2,000, definitely look at other brands, because I think as I say, if you love playing with old lenses, you will absolutely love playing with old lenses on something like a SL. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you like this type of content. Fuji presets coming soon, and as always, a huge thanks to my awesome patrons.